The Pleiadians. Who are the Pleiadians? Why do so many people claim they came from the stars? Look up at the night sky. There is a small group of stars that humanity has been watching for thousands of years. The Pleiades, also known as the Seven Sisters. To astronomers, they are a young open star cluster located roughly 440 light years from Earth. But to some people, the Pleiades are much more than stars. They believe that somewhere among these distant suns, an advanced extraterrestrial civilization may exist. They call them the Pleiadians. They are often described as human-like beings, intelligent, highly advanced, sometimes almost indistinguishable from humans. And according to modern contactee and channeling stories, some of them have supposedly communicated with people on Earth. They are said to have brought messages about consciousness, human evolution, and the future of our planet. But there's a problem. There is no scientific evidence confirming that the Pleiadians exist. So where did this extraordinary story begin? And why did humans decide that these particular stars were home to beings from another world? The Pleiades are a real open star cluster in Taurus. NASA currently lists the cluster at about 445 light years and notes that it contains more than 1,000 stars. The people who claim to meet them. The modern Pleiadian story becomes much stranger when people begin claiming. I've actually met them. One of the most famous names connected to the story is Swiss contactee Billy Meyer. According to his accounts, beginning in the 1970s, he encountered beings he associated with the Pleiades. One of the most famous was a woman called Semjace. Meyer claimed that she arrived in an advanced spacecraft and communicated with him. He produced photographs, contact reports, and other material that supporters have presented as evidence. But the story has always been surrounded by controversy. Skeptics have questioned the photographs and physical evidence, while believers argue that some of the material remains unexplained. So what are we looking at? Evidence of extraterrestrial contact, or one of the most elaborate UFO stories ever created? Whatever the answer, the story helped push the Pleiadians into modern UFO mythology. Meyer's alleged contacts with Semjace are part of his long-running contactee narrative, the Pleiadian message. But the Pleiadian story wasn't only about UFOs. It slowly became something much larger. In the 1990s, author and trans channeler Barbara Marciniak published a book called Bringers of the Dawn. The book claimed to contain teachings received through channeling from the Pleiadians. And the message was very different from a traditional UFO story. The Pleiadians were presented as advanced beings concerned with humanity's evolution, consciousness, fear, human potential, the future of Earth. According to the material, humanity was going through a major transformation, and the Pleiadians were supposedly here to help. But there was something much stranger hidden inside these teachings. They didn't simply claim that aliens existed. They claimed that humanity itself had a much deeper cosmic history than we realize. And that is where the story becomes truly controversial. Bringers of the Dawn was published in 1992 and is explicitly described by its publisher as material compiled from more than 400 hours of Marciniak's channeling. The 12-strand DNA claim. Some of the most famous Pleiadian teachings go far beyond extraterrestrial contact. One of the claims found in the channeling tradition is that humanity's original potential was far greater than what we experience today. The material describes humans as having once possessed 12 strands of DNA, and that these supposed capabilities were somehow reduced or suppressed. It sounds extraordinary, but there is a crucial distinction. Human beings have 2 DNA strands in the familiar double helix structure. The idea of 12 physical DNA strands is not supported by modern genetics. So why did this idea become so powerful? Because it transforms the alien story into something personal. The question is no longer, are aliens out there? It becomes, what if humanity itself is something much more than we were told? And that idea would eventually lead to one of the most popular concepts in modern extraterrestrial spirituality. The 12-strand DNA concept is part of Marciniak's channel material, not an established genetic finding. The publisher describes the book's teachings as including the claim about 12 strands of DNA. Starseeds, Imagine looking at Earth and feeling like you don't belong here, not metaphorically, but somehow, fundamentally, this idea became the foundation of the modern starseed belief, according to the belief system. Some humans are not entirely of Earth. Their consciousness, or soul, supposedly originated somewhere else in the universe, and one of the places frequently associated with these claims is the Pleiades. These people may describe themselves as unusually sensitive, deeply connected to the stars, uncomfortable with ordinary society, or convinced that they have a purpose here. To believers, these feelings may represent memories of another existence. To psychology, they can have many possible human explanations, and scientifically, there's currently no evidence demonstrating that human souls originated on other planets. But regardless of whether the claim is true, millions of people have found meaning in the idea, and that makes the starseed phenomenon a fascinating mystery in its own right. Why do the Pleiadians look human? But there is something about the Pleiadian story that should make us stop. Why do they look like us? Tall, human-like, 2 arms, 2 legs, a human face, eyes, nose, mouth. In many descriptions, they are even portrayed as unusually beautiful. But if they evolved on another world, why would they look so similar to us? Evolution does not normally produce identical body plans simply because 2 species are intelligent. There is no scientific reason to expect extraterrestrial beings to look like humans. So perhaps the explanation is not extraterrestrial biology. Perhaps humans naturally imagine intelligent beings in human form. And if that's true, maybe the Pleiadian appearance tells us more about ourselves than it does about aliens. The dark side of the Pleiadians. But there's another side to the Pleiadian story. Not every extraterrestrial narrative describes them as peaceful teachers. Some modern New Age and UFO communities combine Pleiadian stories with much darker ideas: galactic wars, manipulation, genetic experiments, other extraterrestrial species, and hidden forces influencing humanity. Some interpretations even divide extraterrestrial beings into opposing groups: benevolent and hostile, light and darkness, teachers and manipulators. But we need to be careful here. These stories come from modern belief systems and channel material. They are not confirmed discoveries. Still, there is a fascinating question. Why do so many extraterrestrial stories eventually develop the same pattern? A struggle between forces trying to influence humanity. Perhaps it's because people have always told stories this way. Or perhaps the pattern is pointing towards something deeper about the human imagination. Are the Pleiadians part of a galactic federation? And then the story becomes even bigger. In some modern extraterrestrial narratives, the Pleiadians are not alone. They are said to be part of a much larger network of advanced civilizations, sometimes called the Galactic Federation. Different stories describe different members: Pleiadians, Arcturians, Andromedans, and other alleged extraterrestrial civilizations. According to these narratives, they are supposedly monitoring humanity, protecting Earth, or waiting for humanity to reach a certain level of consciousness. It sounds like science fiction, and there is currently no scientific evidence confirming such a federation exists. But the idea reveals something fascinating. Humanity has imagined a cosmic society, complete with alliances, conflicts, diplomacy, and rules. In other words, we may have projected our own civilization onto the universe. Why the Pleiades? But perhaps the biggest mystery isn't, do Pleiadians exist? It's, why the Pleiades? Why did this particular group of stars become associated with extraterrestrial beings? The answer may go much deeper than modern UFO culture. Humans have been fascinated by the Pleiades for thousands of years. Different cultures developed myths and traditions connected to this distinctive cluster of stars. Its bright blue-white stars are easy to recognize in the night sky. And perhaps that familiarity made the Pleiades a natural destination for human imagination. But modern contact stories gave the stars a new identity, not just a group of distant suns, but a possible home of intelligent beings. So when someone says, I came from the Pleiades. They are connecting a modern extraterrestrial story with one of humanity's oldest relationships with the night sky. The Pleiades have been recognized and discussed in human culture for millennia. NASA describes them as one of the most recognizable star clusters and notes their long history in astronomy and observation. The science. What do we actually know? Now, we have to separate the mystery from the evidence. The Pleiades are real. They are an open cluster of stars in the constellation Taurus. They are roughly 440 to 445 light years away, and astronomers estimate the cluster is around 100 million years old. We know these stars exist. We can observe them. We can measure them. We can study their light. But there is one thing we have not found: a confirmed Pleiadian civilization. There is no scientifically confirmed evidence that humanoid beings from the Pleiades have visited Earth. No confirmed extraterrestrial spacecraft. No verified communication. No confirmed Pleiadian biological material. The stories of contact, the messages, the starseeds, the Galactic Federation, all belong to a world of claims, beliefs, channeling, and speculation. But that doesn't mean the question is meaningless, because the real scientific question is much larger. Is there intelligent life somewhere beyond Earth? And if it exists, could we actually recognize it when we find it? NASA identifies M45 as a real open cluster in Taurus, currently giving a distance of about 445 light years and more than 1,000 stars. NASA/JPL also describes the Pleiades as a young cluster, roughly 125 million years old. Perhaps the Pleiadians are exactly what their believers described. Perhaps they are something completely different. Or perhaps there is nothing there at all. Maybe humans simply looked into the stars and imagine someone looking back. But there is one thing we know. The Pleiades are real. The stars are real. The universe is real. And the possibility of extraterrestrial life remains one of the greatest unanswered questions in science. So the next time you look at those 7 bright stars, remember, you're looking at a place hundreds of light years away, a place that existed long before modern humanity, and somewhere between science, mythology, belief, and imagination, the story of the Pleiadians was born. Maybe one day, we will discover that humanity was completely alone. Or maybe, one day, our telescopes will detect something impossible, a signal, a structure, a pattern, something that wasn't supposed to be there. And when that day comes, we may finally discover whether the Pleiadians were only a story, or whether humanity has been looking toward the right stars all along. This is the Crystal Mind. We begin with the story. Then we discover what is really behind it.